All right, we're going to tackle something that affects millions of people but is so often invisible: the real, deep pain of depression. This is a condition that's so much more than just feeling sad. Understanding it, well, that's the first real step towards fighting it. So let's dive in.
I want you to think for a second. Think about someone you know. Maybe they seem a little withdrawn. Or maybe it's that person who always puts on a brave face. What's really going on behind that smile or behind that silence? More often than not, what's happening underneath is a quiet, drawn-out war. It's this constant, exhausting internal struggle, and it's almost completely invisible to the rest of the world.
A really powerful way to think about this is the classic iceberg metaphor. That sadness or melancholy that we might see on the surface, that's just the very, very tip. The true weight, the real burden of this illness is hidden deep below the water. So let's just get one thing straight right away. We are not talking about just having a bad mood here. Clinical depression, it's a complex medical disorder. It's a deep-seated illness that messes with your thoughts, your feelings, and, this is absolutely crucial, your physical body too.
Okay, so let's go deeper now. Let's look beneath the surface, because it's in that hidden, submerged part of the iceberg where we find the most devastating consequences of depression. And you can see just how much the effects ripple out. See, depression doesn't just live in the mind. It shows up physically. We're talking chronic headaches, muscle pain, even an increased risk of heart disease. It forces people into social isolation, making them withdraw from everyone. And basic everyday things, like concentrating on a task or just making a simple decision, they can feel completely impossible. For some, it can even lead to self-harm, which is a tragic way to try and cope with an internal pain that just feels too big to handle.
And this hidden pain, it comes with an ultimate tragic cost. According to the World Health Organization, that number, 700,000, that's how many people die by suicide every single year. And untreated depression is one of the biggest drivers behind that absolutely staggering figure.
So, this all leads to the obvious question, right? Why? What causes a condition that's this complex, this devastating? Well, as you can probably guess, the answer isn't simple at all.
To get a handle on the causes, it's actually pretty helpful to look at how science has tried to classify depression over the years. An early approach split it into two main buckets. You had endogenous depression, which was thought to come from internal stuff, like genetics or brain chemistry. And then you had exogenous depression, triggered by outside events, like trauma or a major loss. Now we know it's usually a really complicated mix of both, but this framework helps us see all the different pieces of the puzzle.
And in fact, the very definition of these conditions has been debated by scientists for more than a century. Even the foundational concepts right from the beginning were challenged. It just goes to show you how incredibly complex this is and how long we've been struggling to grasp what's really at the heart of it. These days, the classifications are a lot more sophisticated. We talk about things like unipolar versus bipolar depression. We talk about major depressive disorder, or MDD. There's even seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, where the symptoms are directly linked to the changing seasons. The key takeaway here is that it's a spectrum. It's not just one single thing. Now, to really understand the physical side of depression, let's zoom in on one of its most common and, well, destructive partners: insomnia. The connection between these two creates this vicious cycle that is just incredibly difficult to escape.
So check out how this devastating loop works. First, the depression brings on all this anxiety and these relentless negative thoughts. Then, those racing thoughts make it impossible for your brain to just switch off, so your sleep gets totally disrupted. And finally, that lack of good restorative sleep makes every single symptom of depression, the exhaustion, the irritability, the feeling of hopelessness, so much worse. Each part just fuels the next.
And this connection is, well, it's shockingly powerful. Studies show that people who suffer from chronic insomnia are at a 10 times higher risk of developing depression compared to people who get good sleep. That's a massive risk factor. It just hammers home how deeply intertwined our mental and physical health really are. But here's the most important part. Despite all the darkness we've talked about, there is absolutely hope. This is a winnable fight. There are clear, proven paths to recovery and to finding your way back to the light. So, the path to getting better has a few different lanes. You've got psychotherapy, which gives people the tools to rewire those negative thought patterns. There's medication, which can help rebalance brain chemistry. Simple but powerful lifestyle changes, things like diet, exercise, and sleep hygiene, are also incredibly effective. But maybe the most critical piece of all is social support. Seriously, never, ever underestimate the healing power of just listening, of just being there for someone. And let's be crystal clear about this. Depression is not a choice. It's an illness. Full stop. But seeking help, that is a choice. It's a courageous choice. And it is the single most important first step on that road to getting better. Understanding really is the first step. So the question I want to leave you with, the question for all of us, is this. What can we do to walk alongside the people in our lives who are struggling? How can we be the kind of support that makes that courageous choice, the choice to get help, just a little bit easier to make?
Health is the most precious gift. If this video helped you or someone you love, please like, subscribe, and share so more families can stay safe and healthy.